Hi everyone and welcome to Creative Cakes by Sharon. Today I'm going to be showing you how to create this stunning frozen fever cake. This cake is from the new short Frozen movie, which you might have seen if you've already been to watch the new Cinderella movie. Speaking of Cinderella, be sure to check out my Cinderella cake as well. I'll leave a link to this tutorial below. We have a bit to get through today, so let's get started. So I have here some vanilla cake batter, which I've dyed blue with a little bit of blue food colouring, and I've got 3 different size tins here. For the smallest tin I'm going to be baking 2 cakes just so I can achieve the height. As this cake has 4 layers and I've got 3 sets of tins, I'm going to be using a styrofoam mould for the bottom layer. So once I've filled my cake tins, it's off to the oven to bake. All the cakes have been baked and they're cooled now, and what I'm going to do is just trim off the very edge of the cakes just to get rid of the brown crust that's on the edge. As you can see, it's just a sliver of cake that I'm removing. Now using a cake leveler, I'm going to divide all of my cakes so that I can add some filling. I've opened up each of the cakes here, and what I'm doing is brushing the surface with some simple syrup, and this is just a boiled mixture of sugar and water. This is going to keep the cakes nice and moist. Now I can add my buttercream frosting, which I've tinted yellow. I went for a blue cake with a bright yellow frosting filling to match the outside design of the cake, and also to give a nice bright surprise once it's been cut into. Now I'm ready to ganache my cakes, and before I start I pop down a non-slip mat under my cake setup board so it doesn't wiggle about, and once I've got my cake on my board I'm going to start covering the cake with ganache. The first layer is going to be a crumb coat, simply because I've trimmed off some of the edges of the cake and I need to catch all the crumbs. Once I finish with the crumb coat, I'm going to go around again and apply a thicker layer of ganache. Don't worry if you put too much on, because we'll scrape all the excess off in a moment. So here I've got a nice tall cake scraper, and I'm going to gently hold it at right angles to my cake and scrape it along the edge of the cake as I turn my turntable. This is going to scrape off all of the excess ganache. Each time I'm going to make sure that I remove all of the ganache before I put the cake scraper up against the cake again, and continue smoothing and scraping off the excess. If there are any gaps like this one, I'm just going to apply another little bit of ganache and then smooth over the top again. When I get to the top, I'm just going to use my spatula to gently bring in the edges of the ganache. Now, to make sure you get that perfect crisp professional finish, I'm going to use a hot knifing method, and as you've seen me in many of my other videos do before, I dip my spatula into some boiling water, wipe off the excess and just smooth over the edges of the cake. This is going to get rid of any creases or lines so that when the fondant is placed on top of the cake, you end up with a beautiful, nice, smooth finish. Now that my cake's all ready, I'm going to just pop it in the fridge while I prepare my other cakes. I'm going to start working on covering the cakes with fondant now, and before I start each one I'm going to brush them with a little bit of the simple syrup. This is going to help the fondant stick nicely to the cake. And then before I start rolling out my fondant, I'm just going to measure across the cake to see how big I need to roll the fondant out. Once I've rolled the fondant out to about 2 to 3 millimeters thick and it's the right diameter that I require, I'm going to carefully place it over the top of the cake, smoothing out the top as I lay it down. Then it's just a matter of gently smoothing over the top, opening out the edges and smoothing down the sides. I'm going to use a cake smoother to press the fondant down and then trim it off with a pizza cutter. Once again, I need to repeat this process for the remaining cakes. And finally, I need to also cover the styrofoam dummy, which is the bottom tier of this cake, in as much the same manner as I've done the previous 3 tiers. Now, because this cake is a very pretty cake, I thought it called for a very pretty cake presentation board. So I had this beautiful mirrored board, which I'm going to use. So once I've placed my bottom tier, which is the styrofoam dummy, onto my mirrored board, I'm then going to place my second tier, which was my 8-inch cake, carefully lifting it up with an offset spatula and carefully placing it, making sure it's nice and centered on top of the bottom tier. Now, with any stacked cake, it's very important to support each tier, so I'm just going to use these bubble straws. I've got some blue ones here to match my cake. You could use plastic dowels or even wooden dowels, but the bubble straws are very easy to work with and they provide the strength that you require to support the top cakes. So I'm just going to insert 4 of them into the cake and then lifting them up slightly and snipping off the excess and then just pushing it back down, and it should sit level with the top of the fondant. Then I can place my third tier of cake carefully on top of the bubble straws, which will support the weight of the cake and not squash my bottom tier. I need to do this again for the top tier, but I'm just going to use 3 straws because it's a very small cake. I'm going to create the topper for this cake at this point and just leave it aside to dry. So I rolled out a nice thick piece of blue fondant and I'm going to cut around my template of Anna and Elsa. And then insert a wire up through the centre of the fondant. And because I want this topper to be nice and glittery and sparkly, I'm going to first brush on some edible glue and then sprinkle over this sparkly disco dust on both the front and the back of the topper. Now on to the decorating. Now the frozen fever cake is decorated with sunflowers and I don't have a sunflower cutter, so instead I'm using this daisy cutter. So I need to cut out a series of daisies out of this yellow fondant, and then using a little bit of edible glue I'm going to place one daisy on top of another to make it a bit more of a fuller sunflower. The bottom tier of this cake doesn't have any sunflowers on it, but it does have some small little yellow flowers with little black centres which I've rolled out of some black fondant. Using my measuring tape, I'm going to make a little mark at 2-inch intervals because this is going to help me evenly space out my little flowers. Then I can just go ahead and stick them onto the cake. I've prepared some nice thick royal icing and I'm going to create the draping around each tier of the cake. And then I've got these little yellow candy beads which I'm going to stick at each point. If you don't have these or you can't find these, you could just roll little balls of yellow fondant and stick them onto the cake. Now I need to go ahead and create the draping on each tier of the cake, adding the little yellow candy beads as I go. At this point I can start sticking on my sunflowers, and to make sure they're positioned evenly, I'm first going to place one on one side and then turn the cake right around to the opposite side and stick another sunflower. Then I can see that they're placed on either side of the cake. I can position 2 more evenly in the centre. I'm going to continue adding sunflowers on the top 2 tiers, placing them in between the gaps from the tier below. For the sunflower centres, I'm going to use these yummy little junior mints. They're nice and shiny and reflective, just like the ones on the cake in the movie. In between each of the sunflowers on all of the tiers, there is a S shape or a scroll shape, which I'm going to pipe using some royal icing. The border at the bottom of each tier is almost like a snail trail, except it's a little bit longer. So all I'm doing is piping the icing, dragging it for about 1 centimetre, and then letting go and repeating. And then using a very small star tip, I'm going to create another border on the outer edge of each of the tiers. I have some green fondant which I've rolled out here and 2 different size leaf cutters. And once I've attached them to the cake, all that's left for me to do is insert my beautiful and sparkly Elsa and Anna cake topper. And my frozen fever cake is complete. Guys, I hope you enjoyed my frozen fever cake. Don't forget that I have many other frozen themed cakes for you to check out. You can click on the playlist up above and see all of the cakes that I have. If you did enjoy my tutorial, don't forget to let me know by giving it a like. And guys, if you're not already subscribed to my channel, make sure you click the subscribe button so you can stay up to date with all of my creative cakes. Don't forget to drop me a line in the comment section below. Perhaps let me know which of my frozen themed cakes is your favourite. You can also connect with me on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram and Twitter. I hope you tune in next time, and as always guys, thanks for watching.